Our second guest today, we are going to be joined by Dr. Luis Villa-Diaz, professor of biological sciences, Oakland University. Can I tell you, I have been fascinated by stem cell research since I covered the story. It must have been 8-10 years ago when this became legal in the state of Michigan. You guys are doing amazing things.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, stem cell biology is a very remarkable field and a very interesting and is making great progress and in terms of clinical applications, but also just to understand our bodies, the development of our bodies and how our bodies and organs work, and stem cells are playing an important role in that understanding.
So, doctor, for all of us that aren't super smart, such as yourself, we don't have medical degrees, and in general terms, talk a little bit about stem cell research, how it's helping in our day-to-day health, and with, it covers so many different things. It's not just one area of science and biology, right? I mean, there's so many different areas that this research is being utilized.
Yeah, you're right. Stem cells has been used for many years for many applications. One of them is just the use, for example, of hematopoietic stem cells, which are the stem cells that make all these cells of the blood lineage. Your blood, red blood cells, your leukocytes, and many cells of the immune system, right? So, for example, these stem cells has been used in clinics for decades. When people go to the Red Cross and or to the hospital and get a blood transfusion, in many cases, stem cells, hematopoietic stem cells, go into your body for a specific treatment. And like that, there are many other examples in which different stem cells are using for clinical applications. But not only for that, we are only now using many stem cells and cells that we derive from stem cells to do drug testing. I mean, to develop the drugs and the medicines that will be used in clinical therapies, right? Because in the past, how traditionally has been done is doing this testing in animals, right? In mouse, in rats, in dogs, in many other species. And then you figure out whether the drug that you are testing is working in that animal species. And then you hope that that will work in a human cells. But now with the stem cells, especially with embryonic stem cells or with induced pluripotent stem cells, we can derive any cell type of our body. And now we can do those drug testing, at least in vitro, directly in human cells. And now we can go with more certainty that that drug that we are testing is going to work in a human, or it will not have a complications. So stem cells are now doing many of that. And of course, we are developing now many other fields and try to understand many more applications.
Dr. Luis Villa-Diaz with us, professor of biological sciences at Oakland University, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And doctor, you were recently awarded a grant by the National Science Foundation for your research on stem cell biology and the potential use of stem cells in regenerative medicine. What research projects are you working on with those grant funds, and how could those potentially be beneficial to the general public?
Okay, yeah, so my research, the research that we are going to cover with this grant is basic stem cell biology. What we mean with that is that we are trying to understand just basically how stem cells work. Stem cells has two main properties. One property that they do have is that they have the capacity to divide into an identical daughter cell and to another stem cell, right? And another property of stem cells will have is that they have also the capacity to differentiate into a specialized cell type, right? So the stem cell has to make a decision in some point. I'm going to divide to make another stem cell, or I'm going to differentiate into a different cell type. So what I study, what my students in the research lab are doing is try to understand the mechanism of that decision that the stem cell is going to do it, right? What is involved in that? What is the microenvironment where the stem cells live, helping to make that decision or influencing to make that decision? And then if the environment is doing that, what are the proteins and genes that are carrying that information from outside of the cell to the nucleus of the cell to make that final decision? So what will be the application? Well, just the basic understanding of these mechanisms will help us to better maintain cells in an undifferentiated state, just to do more cell renewal, to produce more stem cells, or to induce them for a specific cell lineage differentiation. And then those cell lineage differentiation, we can use it for multiple applications in the future.
So, Doctor, I know that it actually took this getting on the ballot, stem cell research, back in, what, I believe 2008 for this to get passed. But there have been a lot of big proponents of stem cell research, one of them being Christopher Reeve, known as Superman. Do you think having people such as him behind this movement has helped make it happen and it's helping save lives now?
Yeah, I think so. It's always good to have the backup of the public, right? The understanding of the public, and it's always helpful to have a public figure who understand to advocate for a good cause, or to bring attention to something, so the general public then get attention at least and start to getting educated. So I think just what Superman did, what Jane Fox is doing too, with his foundation, Jimmy Fox with his foundations, with many other public figures, and with many also us scientists and advocates, patients. Many patients are talking the benefits that the stem cells may have in the future, or that they already have in the on them. So with this, just create more aware and help to educate the public, help to break down the stigma that could have, and that has a positive benefit.
We are speaking with Dr. Luis Villa-Diaz, professor of biological sciences, Oakland University, here on the MegaCast. We thank you for being on our show. We are in the middle of a pandemic. You are also a professor. What's this been like for you and for your students as well?
Well, yeah, it was a big change in our life, like in anybody else, but right. This pandemic hit us here in Michigan in late March, right? And then, so we were in the middle of the semester. Students were coming to classes, and all the students, we have to send them home, right? And for them to take classes online. And so for them was a big change, something unexpected. The same thing was for us, for the teachers. We have now all the students to adapt to that new reality, to prepare our classes online. Many of us have already some level of preparation in terms of online teaching, but many of us, including me, we have no preparation at all until that moment. So we have to adapt quickly. I think we did in general fine. I think the students adapt very well, and everybody did as best as we could. But this also not only impact teaching in terms of classes, or also impacted us in the terms of research, right? I mean, the same thing happened with us. We have to close our laboratories. We have to stop all our research completely, no matter in what stage of the research we were. So that created a big impact on us, because delay us in getting results back, and many other consequences associated with that.
How long do you think the delays set you back in your research?
Well, I mean, we effectively were closed for since late March until middle of June, so almost 3 months. And then we just back in July we start working again in my laboratory with uh, very limited conditions. At the moment, I only have only a graduate student working in the lab. We are right now we are allowed to have undergraduate students, but at the very beginning in July was not just graduate students. So many of our research, specifically here in Oakland, and my research in my laboratory is done by undergraduate students. So that those projects at the moment are stopped, right, until they are coming back and we are able to resume them. So yes, we have a significant delay in some of our projects. Other ones, the ones that my graduate student is able to do it. He's working hard, and we are making good progress, and we are back to training new students. Well, just to train a new student, that's another impact. Right now, with the new limitations that we have in terms of social distancing that we still have to maintain in the lab, it's very difficult to train new students because you really need to work close with them to explain in detail all the procedures and all the characteristics. So it is making it more difficult. Therefore, for example, I am reducing the level of the amount of students that I was planning in recruiting for the new semester because I will not be able to do the right training for them.
I will say I would have been happy if my ninth grade biology class, where we had to dissect a frog, was virtual. But if you're studying to be a medical doctor, I would imagine there are some things you can do virtual, but in person is so vital. So if this continues past this semester, do you think you're going to see some students drop out? Or if they continue, will they be better doctors or worse doctors going through this?
Well, I hope they don't drop in their studies. I hope they have the convictions to keep going. It's a difficult time for everybody in every situation, and of course, it's also for them to have their plans to go on in their studies. So I really will encourage and I will hope that they continue with their goals, right? Um, I think will be a period of adaptation for everybody, like in any field, where we will need to figure out how to do it. But yes, I agree that, for example, medical students right now that are missing critical months in their training where they could have experience, right, in laboratories or in visiting or attending surgeries and so on, and they are not able to do it. So they are missing some level of education. I just hope that they are able to recover, that we figure out altogether how to get that time recover. And I think that goes, in every single level. I was talking to my son, who is just in elementary school. This year is going to be difficult for him and for every other student. And maybe they will not learn as much, but it's more important to be healthy, to be safe, and then later we will have time to recover, and we will work harder to recover all that time that we miss in our education.
Dr. Luis Villa-Diaz with us, Professor of Biological Sciences at Oakland University, with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. Dr. Diaz, your lab recently acquired a new flow cell sorter. In layman's terms, what is this new piece of equipment and what does it do to help aid your research?
Right, yeah. So it was not specifically for my lab. Was a grant that I am the principal investigator together with many many more investigators here in the departments of biological science, in chemistry, in the Eye Research Institute, and also with the support of the provost office, the president office, the dean of the Department of Biological Science, and many other institutions, the CBR Foundation here. So we apply for this grant to obtain this flow cell sorter. The flow cell sorter, or FACS, how we call it, is an instrument that helps us to analyze populations of cells at the single level or single cell. So you could have, let's say, 1 million cells. So you can run these million cells in this instrument, and this instrument is going to suck one by one. So we'll create 1 million events, that's what we call it, and it will be able to, through using laser beams, will be able to detect specific proteins, the expression of specific proteins, whether they are present or not, in what quantity they are present in the cells. And also it's able not only to identify that in a very fast and precise manner, but it's also you are able to recover the cells if you want. You can sort the cells. Let's say I want to sort X population of cells that should have this protein to be expressed. Well, the machine is not going to be able to detect these cells within that population, and are going to separate it from the rest of the cells that doesn't have it, and it's going to return it to me in a tube that I can then take and do other experiments with those cells. So that will allow us, me and many other of my colleagues, to do many experiments and to advance our research because now we can potentialize the use of samples.
So kind of going off of that, there are so many advancements, and to the general public at one time, stem cell research seemed like something out of the scientific future, right? Like a sci-fi movie or something of that nature. But it is real, and you're changing lives with your research. Where do you see it going in the future, let's say 10, 15, 20 years from now?
A big potentials. We are moving. I remember when I started working with the stem cells in 2004, that were already some visionary scientists, researchers with the stem cells, and they were saying, well, in the future, probably we will not need to have the need to raise animals for food. Probably we can create just steaks out of the stem cells, right? Well, we are not quite yet in that stage, or that's maybe not the field that we want, but we are creating or try to create organs, right? And that's one of the promises of stem cells, that it still has a long way to be accomplished. However, I can tell you that we have made big progress in many different cell types, in different organs or prototypes of organs. Also, we have bioengineered organs in a different way, functional organs in a different way, that are being used already or they are being tested already for a therapeutic use. For example, for diabetes, we are able to, or a group of scientists are able to differentiate pluripotent stem cells into cells that produce insulin, cells of the pancreas. And then they are able to encapsulate these insulin-producing cells in a specific scaffolds that they protect these cells from the microenvironment. Now they are able to put those scaffolds with stem cells, with insulin-producing cells that they were derived from stem cells, and put it in the body. And these cells are able to read, pardon me, the levels of glucose in the body, and are able to produce the insulin accordingly to what is needed. I mean, they are replacing the failing pancreas. That is already happening. Is there are clinical trials, there are companies doing this. All of these research start in laboratories just like mine, but they are moving also to the industry, and they are moving also to the clinic.
Dr. Luis Villa-Diaz, Professor of Biological Sciences, Oakland University. Fascinating conversation. Thank you for your work, and thank you to your team as well. And we wish you all the best going forward.